And I think what really changed for us was when that stress kind of hit a new level. When we started to realize, you know what, this business is going to fall apart if we don't start collaborating with other people and getting help. And I think giving up that control and realizing we don't have to do everything was really what kind of led us down that path. And not only did it alleviate a lot of that stress, but as we started bringing on help from people much smarter than ourselves, we really began to see the business grow and scale in a way we hadn't thought possible.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Today we're going to look at how your teams work together, how they feel included, and what that really means to driving growth. Specifically, we're going to talk about collaborative culture. When you have a collaborative culture, you have something kind of special because no longer is everyone counting on you to make the decisions. They're able to figure things out for themselves. They're able to work through challenges, work the issues, and so that you can actually be the leader that your team deserves. When you have a collaborative culture, things just seem to align together through kind of a network of people, not just individuals working and showing up doing work. So that's what we're going to talk about today in this episode. We have a co-founder of Manly Brands. We have Johnathan Ruggiero. And Johnathan is going to help us understand what collaborative culture really means inside of fast growth companies. We're going to look at some of the details which he does to create this. There's not a lot of structure and strategies around this, but we also look at the big mistake that he made in this journey of fast growth. So when you think about your own leadership, are you curious about what's next? Are you curious about how you could be the best leader you need to be? Well, I can help you figure out what's getting in your way. I do this all the time. I do it for my clients. I want to do it for you. If you're listening to this and you want to be an extraordinary leader, then I want to help you figure out the plan forward. I'm going to help you re-engineer this whole concept to be a leader that your team deserves. And all you have to do is reach out to me. I'd love to talk to you about your business, your leadership. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. When you think about your own leadership, you want to make sure that this is not left to chance. It doesn't just happen, kind of naturally. You want to make sure you intentionally and create it. I want to help you do that and speed up the process, accelerate your leadership. Just go to genehammett.com and schedule your call. Now here's the interview with Johnathan. Johnathan, how are you?
I'm great, Gene. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Excited to have you on Grow Think Tank.
Oh, well, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited. Big fan of the show.
We're going to have a great conversation, but I'd love to get you to talk a little bit about the company you've created here with your co-founder. Tell us about Manly Brands.
Of course, yeah. So my co-founder, co-CEO is my lovely and talented wife, Michelle Lucchese, and we started Manly Bands back in 2016 to solve our own problem. My problem specifically is that I have large fingers, and I had a really tough time finding a wedding band for myself. My wife had no problem. She went to a jewelry store, thousands of options. She fell in love with so many of them. But for myself, not only did I not know my size because I'm a guy and never wore jewelry before, but I found that it was very expensive compared to what I thought it was going to cost. And they only had 4 or 5 styles in the back in the little dark corner of the jewelry store to choose from anyway. So I ended up going online after the jeweler suggested I just buy something from a catalog. I said, you know what, I'm just going to go on and find something. It's 2016. There's got to be websites that sell this stuff. And I did. I came across a website that had super inexpensive rings, which of course made me question the quality of them. I mean, this is something I'm going to wear the rest of my life. And I picked one out and bought it. I didn't know my size, so I got like 4 of them. They were that inexpensive. And when they arrived, they fell out of the bag. There was no ring box. There was no receipt. There was no customer service. And thankfully, because my wedding was in 2 weeks, one of them fit. And so it worked out. But in retrospect, after we had gotten married, we were looking for work and we said, we're entrepreneurs. Let's see if we can figure this out. What problem can we solve that we experienced? And we started talking about that ring experience. And we said, you know what, let's put our heads together and try to solve that. And so that's what we did.
Love how many entrepreneurial brands actually scratch their own itch.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it made a lot of sense. We knew what we would want in an experience, that was a good experience for ring buying for men. And so we just put our heads together. My wife's super creative, so she did a lot of the naming of the rings and the personality, and she designed them with some manufacturers we were working with. And I did the technical stuff, the marketing, and we just figured it out. And we've slowly grown since.
Well, not too slowly, because you made the Inc. list, and it's been an incredible honor, I think, to be what, you're 388 this past year?
We were 388. It was a huge honor. It was, honestly, I've been reading ink since I was a kid. So it was very much a bit of a childhood dream, not to get too dorky about it, but I was really excited.
Well, we're going to dive into what got you there. My team does a lot of research on leadership, specifically companies that are on the Inc. list. And we ask you some questions. We're going to come here to talk about what we found out. But you found that collaboration was an important piece of your company's success. Why is it so important to your growth?
That's a great question. And, I can probably best answer it by telling you about when we weren't doing a lot of collaboration and when we had started to really plateau and we weren't really able to grow. About a year in, Michelle and I were still running the business out of our garage. We wanted, full control over the business, and that's what we had. And, when you're only two people, really maybe three, we brought Michelle's family in to help us out, 3 or 4. We found, this is super stressful. How are we going to scale this to a level that doesn't make us want to pull our hair out every day, which I've done quite a bit of. And so we talked and we said, look, this isn't going to be scalable. We're going to be killing ourselves in the garage every day. The neighbors were starting to wonder what these huge bags were we were bringing in and out of the house every afternoon. It was just super awkward, but we were like, no, we can save money if we just do it ourselves. It'll be great. And I think what really changed for us was when that stress kind of hit a new level. When we started to realize, this business is going to fall apart if we don't start collaborating with other people and getting help. And I think giving up that control and realizing we don't have to do everything was really what kind of led us down that path. And not only did it alleviate a lot of that stress, but as we started bringing on help from people much smarter than ourselves, we really began to see the business grow and scale in a way we hadn't thought possible.
Love that story. Johnathan, when you look at a company your size, because you're not that big, right? How many employees do you have right now?
53.
And what you were talking about, the story back then was out of the garage, and a lot of great companies that start out of the garage. I'm sure you know that. The Apple journey and many, many more. But when you think about culture, did you think about it really early before you were hiring, before you got to 50 employees?
We were not. And the reason was, and this probably isn't a good reason, but the reason was our entire staff was remote. So, these were pre-COVID days. We were COVID ready, I guess. I'd say the first 10 to 15 team members were remote. They were all around the country. They were friends and family members and people we grew up with and went to high school and college with. People we trusted, which, we were told many times, don't hire family, don't hire friends. I can say gratefully that all of those folks are still with us today and they're huge assets of our team. So we really lucked out there. But it really wasn't until we started bringing people into our office. We relocated from Florida to Utah in late 2019, and we love it here. The people are amazing. The entrepreneurial spirit is incredible here in Utah, and because of that, we were really able to bring on some really top-notch talent from our warehouse team, fulfillment team, to much of our executive team and our creative team. And it wasn't until everybody was kind of in-house, we said, Michelle and I have a vision for this company. We have a vision for what we would want the culture to be. And then we had to kind of figure out, okay, how can we make sure the employees understand that and can become an active part in it?
I had a lot of people on the podcast before. One of them was one of the co-founders of Netflix, and they talked about the importance of culture early. But you figured out as your company was going to grow, I think you had to have a culture that was defined. You talked about transparency before we cut on the recorder. What role does transparency play in your company's growth?
I think transparency is a really big deal. As we started, most of the levels that we hired were pretty high up management levels to help us with all of that aspect of the business. And we were always transparent with things like numbers and budgets and all that super important stuff. And, I think what we've learned is that transparency is needed to have a successful team, especially on the management side. On the fulfillment side or the CS side, we don't share all the numbers, but it's important that they understand our vision, where we want to go, how they can be a better active person in our culture, and just to communicate. And having those lines of communication, I think, not only create an atmosphere of inclusion, but also of more responsibility and more commitment to the brand. So they feel like they're part of it as opposed to just working for a company. They feel like they are the company, which is super important to us.
Johnathan just talked about inclusion. Inclusion is a big concept for companies. You want to make sure people feel like they're included included inside decisions, inside of strategy discussions and pivots you're making, maybe it's marketing decisions or sales decisions, if they feel excluded, they have no sense of ownership of the company. They have no sense of ownership of their projects. But if you include them in to these decisions, they have more buy-in. So if you want people to take ownership of the problems and the projects and the client experience, you want to include them in. This doesn't mean you'll always include them in. It doesn't mean you're trying to find consensus, but you're giving them a voice, because if they have a voice, they feel like a sense of owner around the work that they do. You want to do that every place you can, because it really does help people buy in to what you're doing. Now back to Johnathan. A lot of the things we're talking about today could be traced back to the company core value. Do you guys have, a very clear understanding of what the values are, and are they communicated on a regular basis across the team?
Probably not communicated as much as we would like, to be honest. And it's something that we are always working on. But the core values of transparency, trust, responsibility, those are probably the key ones. And I think that we kind of live those values. So while we probably should talk about them more in our management calls, we do try to lead by example. And, we're always trying to be fair and transparent and making sure that people have an input, and not only into the company, but into their roles and their positions and responsibilities.
Do you have a favorite strategy or a way to include them into this living the values?
Favorite strategy? That's a good question. We don't have a strategy, I guess. I think it's almost just something that we kind of reiterate, like I said, not formally, although we should more often, but just in how we work together. So, in terms of giving responsibility or transparency between departments, we were always asking, hey, make sure you work with so-and-so, make sure you talk through everything. It seems like common sense, but it's important that people don't feel like they're competing with each other, like from a department standpoint, or, things like that. For our culture, we want everybody to feel like they're on the same baseball team. And if they're not able to play together, that's when we start to see problems.
I want to give you a chance to talk about some of the other aspects that have kept your company growing through tough periods, as COVID is we're still battling it right now. What else besides collaboration is really important to you?
This might sound cliche, but a family atmosphere is actually really important to me. I don't know if, and again, I'm not an MBA. I'm just like I tell people, I'm a scrappy entrepreneur, just trying to change the world and do good things. And currently, we're having a great time growing Manly Bands. But for me, our team's the most important thing, and that is very, very apparent to our entire team, all the way from the executives, all across the board. And I think we make that very apparent by just how we treat each other. We've gone out of our way, especially with COVID, to just make sure our team is taken care of. And I don't just mean that from a hand sanitizer and mask standpoint, but providing mental health resources, making sure that folks know how to get counseling or any like mental health therapy, which we recommend regularly, if possible, or if they're interested. From meditation, which we provided a meditation service, a subscription to the Calm app for all of our employees. We really do try to take care of them. Burnout is something we talk about frequently. What we find, and of course I'm not surprised because we have an incredible team, but we have to beg people to take time off. And it's not because they have crazy deadlines, or they just genuinely love working together with us, which is awesome. And we're so appreciative. But unfortunately, we can also see them burning themselves out. So oftentimes we have to have conversations about that. We try to take care of our team in the way that we feel they take care of us. And that's always been a huge, huge point that we've tried to maintain here in our culture and at the business.
I think a lot of people would say that what you just said, our team is the most important thing. What will we see inside your organization to let us know that that's really the most important thing?
Well, I think on the surface, it might be hard to tell because everyone's working so hard. But I think if you ask anybody here on our team, they would say that, we as a management team go through great lengths to make sure everybody's taken care of. And I don't mean in some weird way, giving them 3 weeks off because they're tired or whatever. Obviously we have a great time off and benefits package, but it's more about making sure they are good. Like I was saying with the mental health, with COVID, a big thing for us was just making sure everybody was safe safe when COVID was getting really bad, and it's still really bad. But in the beginning, we came together as a team. We had a big meeting, and we said, you know what can we do to make sure we're all going to be safe? This is pre-vaccinations and all that. This was like April after it started in 2020. And what the team, we all decided together was that we were going to try, because we didn't know how bad it was going to get, we were going to try to move fulfillment to people's houses, just so they didn't have to come together in the warehouse, which seemed like a huge lift. But we were all for it. We said, this is great. Then we don't have to worry about people in the warehouse together. And so we found a way to do it. And our teams amazingly all came together. We loaded up a bunch of trucks, went to a few folks' houses, and they set up fulfillment centers in their basement. And they had UPS come and pick up, and we kept people safe. That went on for 2 or 3 months, I think. And then everybody was going a little stir crazy. But we try real hard to make sure that even our warehouse team was able to work from home for a while during COVID. And now, thankfully, they're awesome about social distancing. We still wear masks. Everybody's vaccinated. So we're still keeping everybody safe. But it was that coming together of the team, coming up with that idea, which wasn't our idea. It was a team effort, literally. And we were just so proud of everybody just caring so much about everybody else.
Johnathan, I want to turn the tables on it, focus on you for a second. You had mentioned that you don't have much of a background in leadership, no formal training, MBAs or anything like that to me. What's one mistake that you could share with us that you have overcome and that you're not afraid to let people know that this is something you struggled with in your leadership capacity?
Oh, for sure. I don't know if I've overcome all of them, but I would say humbly in my beginning, it was letting go. It was trusting other people to do as good of a job as I would hope that I would do. And I think it was coming to that realization that, I'm not an expert. There are people out there who specialize and enjoy, working on marketing and working on customer service and working on fulfillment and creative stuff a lot more than I do. And they're so much more talented than I am. And I tell you, in the beginning, I was taking the photos like a lot of entrepreneurs when they're starting out. I was taking the photos, doing the Facebook ads. My wife was doing all the customer service and logistics. We both were shipping, and we felt like we had a good thing going until we started experiencing burnout. And it was really the hiring that first part of the team, those 4 or 5 people to come on and kind of take some of that off our plate. That was difficult. And I don't know if that exactly has to do with leadership per se, but that was definitely one of our shortcomings, was being willing to delegate. And we've seen that play out over and over again as we've continued to grow. And now we're up to 53 people, and it's now with the exec team, it's the same thing. Like we're letting go of different processes that we've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years, and it's not easy. It's not easy, and sometimes it's scary, but it's definitely better for the team, for us mentally. It's a good thing, and so we're working on it.
My guess is we started this conversation talking about collaboration. When the team started collaborating more, it's easier to let go. Is that theory right?
It is, yeah, and I feel like it's part of our culture. You get this really great culture of trust and transparency, and I feel like the more you have that, the easier it is to let go, and then your stress comes down. And it's been a real eye opener since we hired our president Marshall, who is an MBA, and he is just a fantastic human being, and he has helped change this business from that scrappy entrepreneur style that we had, where we were kind of hanging on a wing and a prayer for a while, and then making it more stable and bringing a lot of business acumen that Michelle and I just hadn't had a ton of experience with. So it's trusting him and being willing to delegate a lot of the growth and the just business skills and talents that he had was just fantastic for us.
Johnathan, I really appreciate you being here on the show and sharing this wisdom.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
I want to wrap up this episode by giving you a little bit of reflection of what I've got from Johnathan. Johnathan's listening in, so he can know that he's adding value, not just to you guys listening in, but to me as well. I talked to a lot of founders about collaboration, but when he talked about the details and what they really expect of their people, how they do this over and over, and how it's added to the ability of him letting go, I really love the fact that collaboration is not just brainstorming sessions. It's a way for us to work together and lean on each other as necessary. And that really makes the team effect. And that takes great leadership to make that happen. So if you're curious about what your next step of leadership is, I would love to invite you to come to a conversation with me. That conversation will give you an idea of where you're going, the vision forward. If you want to be an extraordinary leader, I want to help you figure out exactly what that looks like, the impact it's going to make. I think a lot of leaders are so focused on the work in front of them that they don't really take time to figure out what's next for them. But I want to help you do that. So if you want to schedule that call, just go to genehammett.com cooperative.com and schedule your call today. You'll love it, absolutely free, and I want to help you be that extraordinary leader, the one your team deserves. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.